Welcome to Restoring Men in History. What does socialism promise? It promises equality, prosperity, and a fairer world, but does it deliver? A century ago, Mises wrote Socialism, a book that predicted why the system would fail. Economically, socially, and politically, his arguments are very powerful today, and they might change how you see the world. In this video, we're getting into his book, Socialism, to uncover 3 reasons socialism doesn't work. And these ideas matter today. It's a topic that's going on right now in the United States and being discussed. First, Mises was an Austrian economist who saw socialism gaining traction in Europe after World War I, and in 1922, he published Socialism, an economic and sociological analysis, challenging that hype around socialist ideas. From Marxist planning to milder versions, he was challenging this. Mises used logic and economics to show why this system doesn't work. Even in theory, it doesn't work. Written as the Soviet Union was forming, his predictions were bold at the time, but history has proven him correct and backed him up. So let's break down 3 key arguments of his. In contrast, real quick before we do that, a free market is an economic system based on private property, voluntary exchange, and market prices that emerge from individual actions without, get this is the important one, without coercive state intervention. 3 cheers for the free market. And we'll have more later on what a free market is not, which may confuse people. Because when the government does something, that's not the free market, and then people tend to blame the free market, not the government. So we want to watch out for blaming the free market for something the big federal government or a state government does or the Fed does. If you like this subject, please subscribe, like, and comment. So his biggest argument is the economic calculation problem. It's a game changer. Here's how it works. Socialism abolishes private property and markets. So what happens? There are no prices, right? No prices for bread, cigars, guns, steel, or labor. Sounds okay for some people, but it's not. Prices are what? Signals. They tell producers what people want and how scarce resources are. If apples cost more than oranges, farmers can do what? They can grow more apples, right? Simple. If no one is buying a certain cigar at any price because no one likes it, they have to make another one. If no one is buying any cigar at all, anytime, no matter what the price, they might have to make something else and go into a different business, right? But if there's a high number of men and they're buying the most expensive cigars, more people might go into making expensive cigars, right? So that's the market, and you have signals on that. In socialism, there's no market to set prices. Planners have to decide how much steel goes to cars versus bridges, how much grain becomes bread versus beer. Without prices, they're what? They're lost. Mises put it perfectly. Where there is no free market, there is no pricing mechanism. Without a pricing mechanism, there is no economic calculation. Get that? Without prices, planners are doing what? They're guessing, right? What happens? Leads to shortages, and you pay for it, and waste. Imagine planning an entire economy, billions of decisions, without knowing what anything cost. It's like solving a puzzle with no pieces, right? Soviet Union faced this by the 1980s. It had plenty of missiles, but struggled to stock grocery stores. That's the calculation problem in action. Now, what do socialists do? They try to come up with something. Socialists back then suggested alternatives, like using labor hours to price goods. Mises shot that down. Labor hours don't reflect scarcity or demand. A diamond takes less time to mine than a ton of coal. But what's worth more? The diamond, right? Without market prices, socialism can't solve this. That leads to chaos. Venezuela's oil mismanagement, Cuba's shortages. Incentives. Now this is a huge one for people that are ambitious or hardworking. This is important. Mises argued that socialism kills the drive to work, drive to innovate, drive to take risks. Why? It disconnects effort from reward. In a market, If you invent a better cigar or a better phone or a better gun, you might earn more. That's the profit motive. It's not perfect, but it drives progress. Socialism, by collectivizing everything, takes that away. And I think it takes away sacrifice too, right? Why would you work 60, 70, 80 hours a week for years and give up spending time whatever you want to do? Maybe you love your work. But why would you spend years and years sleeping on the floor, sleeping in the office, sleeping wherever you have to sleep and work 80 hours a week if there was going to be no reward to it, no economic gain to it, and you didn't even own private property and you didn't really own it? So Mises nailed it. The socialist community would know no inducement to progress because it would lack the two most effective motives. And what would those be? The hope of gain and the fear of loss. The hope of gain and the fear of loss, right? Got to have that in the market, right? That's why the Soviet workers, by the way, didn't care about quality. There was no reward, right? So why care? What does it matter what kind of shoddy or bad product you make? They met quotas by producing what? Shoddy goods. While black markets thrived because people want what? What do people really want? Real incentives. They want to be rewarded for their extra effort. Planners can't replicate the millions of daily decisions individuals make in a market. They might force people to work. You can go force people to work with quotas or punishment, but that's not sustainable. People are not what? Robots. Mises saw this coming. Socialism assumes we're selfless angels, but most of us need a reason to get out of bed. Finally, Mises warned that socialism leads to authoritarianism. To make a planned economy work, you need a powerful state to enforce it. Without markets to coordinate, planners control everything. Factories, farms, even jobs. That leaves no room for dissent. He warned, the socialist community is a great authoritarian association in which orders are issued and obeyed. This is the only form which a socialist community can assume. Socialism needs control, crushing freedom to enforce the plan. History shows it. Soviet Union's gulags, China's Cultural Revolution, North Korea today. You saw what happened in Venezuela. Even milder interventions tend to grow state power over time. Not fantastic. Mises argued freedom thrives where? Where does freedom thrive? In markets, ladies and gentlemen, in markets. Where individuals choose through voluntary exchange. Socialism replaces that with top-down control. It's not just about breadlines. It's about your ability to live on your own terms. You like red meat? Too bad we're not giving that this month. Sometimes people say, what about Scandinavian countries? Or what if we just had better leaders? Mises addressed these as well. Scandinavian countries aren't socialist. They're market economies with big, huge welfare programs. Private property and prices still drive them, though. As for better leaders, Mises said the problem isn't people, it is what? What is it? It is the system. Doesn't matter what kind of leader you have, the system won't work. No planner can handle an economy without prices. Socialism and its flaws are built in. It's not a matter of execution. So again, it's the system. Some people like to say if we've never had the real true socialism. No, the real true socialism has these flaws. It's the system of socialism that doesn't work. Oh, well, we just needed good leaders, great leaders. That won't help because it's the system. Doesn't matter if you have the greatest leader in the world, the system does not work. Why does socialism fail? Mises showed us. Number one, it can't calculate economically. 2, it kills incentives. And 3, it leads to authoritarianism. These warnings from 1922 resonate today as socialist ideas resurface. So you can read Human Action too. He wrote that book. It's another good one. So what's the solution? What was the solution? Private property, voluntary exchange, market prices, decentralized coordination, entrepreneurship and profit motive. And here's some things that are not that he was worried about. Limited state role. The state's role is minimal, ideally limited to what? Protecting property rights and contracts. So you can see how far our government here has gone off, especially from the limited government that was ratified with amendments and gone away from their enumerated powers they were given. Not interfering with prices or production. Anarchy. He doesn't advocate for no government, but for a government that protects what? Property rights and contracts. Simple government, limited government, ensuring the market functions. Perfect competition. Mises's market doesn't require idealized conditions. It includes real-world dynamics, as long as monopolies arise without state coercion. Again, we don't want the state. Interventionism. This is a key one. This is why some people get confused. Let's take a look at it. He distinguishes the free market from mixed economies with heavy state involvement. So imagine if we could eliminate all those subsidies and most of these regulations. The free market, you got a mixed economy here, we could move more up with more opportunity and freedom. Able to, when you work hard in a meritocracy, you can capitalize on it in a free market. That's free market. So we want to be moving what? To more and more and more free market and getting the government out of our lives. So there's some confusion sometimes. The government does all these incredible actions, and then people blame the free market for something the government has done. For state government too, it could be the federal government or the state government or the local government. But if the federal government, the state government, and the local government all combine and make it more difficult to do business in your area with enormous regulations, what? That's not the free market operating. If they tell you whom you have to hire and how you have to run your business, that again is not the free market. If they're coercing business on quotas and how many people you have to hire of this and that, that's government interference. For example, just one thing, a lot of people talk about housing prices and how they've risen, but how many regulations do you have, and I've talked to builders about this, coming from HUD, FEMA, the federal agencies, and then big state governments like California I've talked to a lot of people about, and then the local government. But among them all, you've got a lot of regulations coming down and agencies interfering with how the houses are built. That's not completely free market, right? How much inflation is the government creating with spending? Over $36 trillion in debt. Again, that's not a free market problem, that's a government problem. When the government does too big to fail, that's the government interfering. That's the government intervention, right? Subsidies, a government intervention. So anytime something's rising as a result of government, and when the government got involved in Medicare, Medicaid, and medical increased for the average person paying, that's the government intervention, right? So spending, debt, deficits all affect you. That's government interfering in the economy. So we're going to go back to Mises. I just wanted to put that in, that there's a confusion today that it's the free market. It's not the free market. It's big, this massive government that has all these regulations and that's interfering in the economy, that's picking winners and losers. So the answer is not to move it, right? If you see corruption in the government, or you think the government is acting unfairly, rewarding, picking losers and winners, right? If the big federal government or your state government is picking the winners and losers, giving out subsidies, giving out grants, whatever they're doing, helping certain groups or certain businesses, that's interfering in the free market. So you don't want a bigger government with socialism. You want to move more and more to the free market. We want less government involvement and less of them picking the winners and losers and manipulating. Same thing with the Fed. You can't blame the free market for actions of the Fed. The Fed is not the same as the free market. All right, so solution. Return to what was ratified, the U.S. Constitution, with amendments and federalism. So what do you think? Is socialism appealing? Or does Mises make a great argument? Comment below. Like, subscribe if you like these subjects, and we'll do more. Listen, I appreciate you watching. I know your time is valuable. Thank you and have a great day.